I'm Gideon.
This
is Angus.
Yeah, we've kindly met up with a professional from
Mackay Conservation Group.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about it.
Peter McCallum. I'm the coordinator at Mackay Conservation Group. I work here not basically full-time and help organise the groups, which is mostly a volunteer organisation. It's been around for around 30 years. Was established back in 1984 to campaign against the road through the Daintree rainforest, which was to Cape Tribulation. So that's where we got started, and since then we've been running campaigns on a whole range of local biodiversity and other issues, and lately we've had a fairly strong focus on climate change being the centre of climate change ground zero here in
why is
central
that?
Queensland.
Is there been a particular push for it from the public or from
Well, I think that people have always been concerned about the rapid expansion of the coal industry in this area. Mackay has seen massive changes socially, as a result of the and economically, I suppose, as a result of the mining boom that started off in 2000.
I heard a quote from someone that I hitchhiked with a few days ago that 30,000 people have left Mackay in the last year alone.
Well,
2014, is that right, or is that an exaggeration?
You probably heard that. That's right.
I did hear that.
But we've heard figures of 15,000, 30,000, a new one, 40,000. I don't know that anyone has a clear figure.
But either way, there is a large population decline.
There's been it's obvious. If you travel around on the roads in Mackay, you see that there's a lot less traffic on the roads these days.
Major infrastructure here to deal with the massive influx of population.
We had a big housing boom. Initially, when the mining boom kicked off, the mining companies were just advertising jobs. They weren't providing any accommodation or anything like that. So people were living anywhere possible. So housing prices it went through the roof. My house we bought in 2000, and within 2 years it was triple the price. Like the houses in the street were selling for triple the price. So it became too expensive for the average person to live here. That was on wages weren't as high here as they were in capital cities. A lot of people who were on low incomes left because rents became very high, and so Mackay became very focused on mining. People in the sugar industry couldn't employ staff because they couldn't compete with mining companies. So all those sorts of things were the sort of impacts of the growing mining boom back in the early 2000s, and nowadays we see the exact opposite. There's a lot of vacant housing, there's a lot of a lot of unemployment and things like that. So the mining companies have basically just dumped all the people they don't need nowadays and said, well, look after yourselves.
It's obviously had a massive influence on people that lived here locally before the mining boom came in. How well does the general public know holistically about the whole issue, about why the mining has boomed here, why extra people are coming in, why the house prices have gone up? How well connected are all the events in the general public, in your opinion?
People have their own ideas about how those things work. Some people think it's the carbon tax has led to the end of the mining boom, and that Tony Abbott was going to save the whole thing. Well, that didn't happen. I'm not sure that people sort of there is a concerted campaign to blame greenies for the troubles that the mining industry is in. But look, the reality is that there's too much coal on the market in the world for the demand. So the price of coal has declined rapidly.
And in that way, do you often, as an environmental group, get vilified for being the devil's advocate in their case?
Well, only by people with a political axe to grind. The average person in the community probably isn't anywhere near is very strongly green, and compared with our sort of representatives, especially the federal member for Dawson, he's been particularly nasty in his attacks on Mackay Conservation Group, including naming members of our staff and telling them that they should leave town. In Parliament, that's pretty sort of low, and
quite vindictive, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it's his. He's telling a particular story, and I think that the reality of economics doesn't bear out anything that he's saying, and also he's not. He is. What do you call a climate change denier? So he believes it's a bit of a myth that's been created by a bunch of scientists who want employment, and so he's continuing to push that line as well.
Sure. And what's some of the more recent work that the Mackay Conservation Group's done around the region and in the area?
Well, I suppose we became quite well known nationally, internationally for. The campaign, we took the Federal Environment Minister to court over his approval of the Carmichael coal mine, which is would be the largest coal mine in Australia if it was built. That's a project that's being proposed by Adani. It's a group of companies from India. And so we challenged his decision on a number of grounds, and one of them was that he hadn't taken into account a couple of threatened species, the two reptiles that are well known in that area. They're on those that sites out in sort of Western Queensland. He suddenly came to a realisation that he had made a stuff up. And withdrew his approval for the mine in August, so that was a major setback for Adani. It slowed down their project for a couple of months, right? So until the minister went back and reticked the boxes and approved it again.
Yeah, well,
so
that happens more often than not.
Yeah, no, it's not very often that anyone is successful in a challenge. Like there's not many challenges that are made to projects that he's approved or that the federal government approves under their legislation. But there's only been, I think, 2 successful challenges, and that was one of them. So that's I suppose that's where we gain a bit of fame or notoriety.
Being environmental champions, if you will.
That's right. But our other work, we've been doing it. We do a lot of different work. One of the things that we're doing at the moment is looking at a bird called the Youngler honeyeater. We're doing a project to look and see whether that is being threatened by forest logging in the Youngler Range west of Mackay.
Right, and how much of that is run through the Environmental Conservation Group itself, or will you contract scientists from...
We do, I suppose we do most of the work, working with local bird observers, amateur bird observers. So those people are very skilled at identifying birds, and they have all the equipment. Those birdos are just fanatical about getting hold of very good cameras, binoculars, whatever. And so we provide them with support to go and get to the sites that are where the birds are being monitored. And so at the moment we're undertaking a 3-year project to monitor the Youngler honeyeater, which is a small endemic population of birds that live only in 100 square kilometres of this sort of central Queensland area in the rainforest and open woodland in the Youngler Range. Cool. So that's a bird that's probably only been identified as a separate species for the past 30 years, and so we're hoping that if we can provide some useful data on
get some good data, then it can be categorised accordingly and protected.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
how do you get a lot of the local people involved, like around Mackay? Do you get a lot of support from people around here?
Yeah, well, it depends on the project we're doing. So we have people who work in the mining industry who are part of our group. We've got people who are retired, all sorts, kids, school students, and people basically come to us. We have like with graziers, whatever. People hear about what we do through media, through coming to our website. If they have an interest in something, they'll see something about what we're doing on Facebook or whatever.
Is that a primary way of engaging new people using social media like Facebook and Twitter and other things like that?
It is. I think that...
or would you say the majority is still word of mouth? Johnny, Mickey, Mikey's mate said, come along on this field day and we'll watch some birds. And
it's a bit of both.
Right.
Yeah, like people... I suppose people who click on a page on Facebook and say, I like that, you know, probably haven't really sort of demonstrated a strong level of commitment.
Yes,
people who
engaged.
walk in the door, you know, much more engaged. And so we, you know, like people are, I suppose that, you know, some people come along to a few things. We send emails out, we text people, you know, we use whatever form of communication we can. We get out on the street, we do stalls, we hand out flyers, you know, all those sort of basic traditional ways of reaching people, plus social media and electronic communications as well.
Sure.
So yeah, it's like the way I became involved with the Mackay Conservation Group back in 1993 was I picked up a newsletter in a cafe, and you know I saw that this building on the front page of the newsletter it said, you know, it took us 3 weeks, but we raised $100,000 to buy this building.
Wow.
What sort of greeny organisation is capable of raising $100,000
exactly.
in 3 weeks?
It means
So
it must be doing
what's
something.
going on here? You know, like, and they had very good connections with the community. It's probably one of the most conservative environmental organisations you'll ever come across. It's got people from.
You're not chaining yourself to coal trains.
I
and things
do
like
that
that
too. Yeah, but a bit of everything. You know,
Right,
like
okay.
so. Like I don't know that they've chained to coal trains, but organised flotillas. You know, sort of on the reef campaigning.
Right.
People have sort of gone and signed pledges that from different organisations working with us have said that you know that they're interested in that type of activity. I don't know
That's
whether
better
that's
than a
gonna
like on a Facebook page.
Yeah, and
If
I
you're
know that
talking
when
about
we ran a campaign to stop some wetlands being destroyed for a road back in about 1999. And there were a whole stack of grandmothers and mothers and, you know, young women, all women who were willing to sort of stand in front of the bulldozers in those days. So, you know, the group has both this sort of, you know, very conservative group of people involved in it who have been really good at getting the word out to churches and to other types of organisations like that and landholders.
Do you find... speaking of the really active and activism forms of environmental engagement, do you find that, because we were talking about social media before, do you find that a lot of people get very blasé about the science of things and about the importance of environmental research and its practice through conservation and things like that? Do you think that nowadays it's more difficult to engage physically in an audience and get people to come to rallies, get people to come to important meetings, sign petitions and things?
Look, it'll be interesting to see. I know that we held a meeting in the 1980s to campaign against the development of Lindemann Island National Park as a tourism resort, and that project is coming up again. So the new developer has taken over and wants to.
So you can kind of analyse with the different.
So we had
different
500 people turn up to a public meeting from both sides of the argument at a church hall. Like it was packed to the rafters. There were people spilling out inside the building, leaning through windows, trying to hear what was going on back in the mid '80s. And we'll see how the community engages on that issue when that starts to fire up again this year. So the Queensland government seems to be supportive of that development again, where they'll be swapping land in national park on Lindemann Island for other land, and we'll see whether there's that same level of engagement. I think there will be. I think people are very concerned about their national parks and how they're treated. And especially in their local area, you know, they like to know that places that they hold dear are protected.
And a lot of people.
Well, thank you very much, Peter.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
so
all
much
right.
for being
Awesome.
Yeah,
Cheers.
Good to meet you guys. Yeah. So I'll let you turn off your devices.
Yeah, no, we're trying to get a little bit more high tech on this.